So welcome, Debbie. Debbie is our quilting specialist. She's been here in the shop with us for 3 years. And we are just thrilled to have her today. She's actually from her remote location working at home. I'm going to demonstrate all of her long arm, how to prep and quilt for the long arm quilting. So Debbie, I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you on the video and let you take it away.
Hey, good morning. Well, welcome to my home. I want to start off with that, but I'm actually going to go a little farther than just the long arming because not everybody is going to be using long arms in their life. And I want to go over just some details that might help you with prepping your backing and getting your quilt together for your quilting if you're quilting on your machine.
Sleeping Freddy.
Actually, if as you're coming in, sorry to interrupt, Debbie, if you guys could mute or stay muted, and I'll try to help mute as well. So that way we can really hear her well. So sorry, Debbie.
That's okay. Okay, I'm at home. I've got all the time. No. So I'm going to show you first what a long arm looks like. Now, this is actually in my home. It's in my family room. I live in Estes Park. The homes are small up here. So if you haven't seen one, this is what the machine looks like. You are sitting in my chair that I use for long arming, and I'm going to travel through here. So this is the head of the machine right here, and it does all the hard work, but it has to listen to the computer as I tell it where to go. And well, actually the computer really helps me with all of that. So this takes, I have to have 14 feet by 8 feet in order to get this into my house, into a room. But I'm going to go ahead and we're going to switch over for just a moment. I want to talk to you about preparing your backing for your machine. Or for any kind of quilting that you're doing. So I'm going to pretend that I have a quilt top that is 60 inches by 72 inches. And I need to get my back ready. Now, when you're loading on your long arm, you want it to be very straight. But guess what? When you're doing your backing at home for a quilt that you're going to do on the floor for basting and everything, you want it to be straight also. So I know that I need, if I'm doing it on a long arm, I'm going to add 8 inches to the length of it and 8 inches to the width of it, because that is the area that we're using to keep everything tight. And we're not going to be quilting up to that inches. So your backing needs to be a little bigger. If you're doing it on your home, you can drop it down to 4 inches. So it would be 64 by 76. So I'm going to start right here. This is a cutting mat here, and I'm going to measure this off. But before I start, I'm going to tear my end. This way, everything goes on grain. Here, you just want to keep that tear consistent and going. I'm going to measure it out. So I know this is about 44 inches in width, the fabric. So I'm going to make this one 68 inches. That's 40 and 28 more inches. Wow, I barely had enough on this piece. I didn't pre-measure it. Okay, make 68. If you tear it and it doesn't go all the way across, you know that you need to cut into it another ½ inch to get a straight tear. So I need to do my second piece. And I'm going to clip this. So this is the end that if I'm tearing it and it doesn't, and it quits tearing before I get to the end, I need to start over. So let's and keep moving over ½ inch till you get it to tear all the way across the width of it. That tells you that this is on the grain and it is straight. So I'm going to start over here again, and I'm going to measure 68 inches. And that's what I have left off. Now on this, I want to do the length of it. I'm going to tear it also because I'm going to join these two together. I'm going to put a seam in. I'm going to keep one side without being torn because that's going to be the outer edge. Sometimes you get those strings and you just have to clip them at some point, but not always. So you would want to match it up if you had a directional. I do not have a directional fabric, so I can just flip this side here. I'm just taking off the salvage. Then before I iron my fabric, or else it's wrinkled. If it's not wrinkled beyond just the basic folding, if it happened to have been in wad, then I might have ironed it first. But I don't iron it. So I'm finished with this part. So now I'm going to take and put the right sides together, length sides together. I'm not going to actually sew this for you, but, and I don't even have to pin this. If I don't pull on one section or the other section, if I just let everything go nice and light, I do use 1/3 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch because sometimes the threads pull in little areas when you're ripping it. And you want to make sure that that area is all tucked in there. And I use a 2.5 inch, a 2.5 stitch length. I don't shorten my stitch length on this because if you shorten it, it's going to pull your fabric in tighter. And you want to match your weave on your fabric because you want this seam to be nice and straight. So I would just sew this all together. And then I would take it and press it. Now I press my backing seam one direction. Some people press them open. There's no right or wrong. I like to press it to one side to, if in the event the seam should break at some point, then I know that there's another section that you could grab to pull with extra fabric on it that hasn't been pulled as tight, but it's your preference on that. If you're not loading on a long arm, I'm going to start with that before I talk about the long arm, loading it. If you're not loading it on a long arm, and if you were going to baste it on the floor or an extra large table, if you happen to have it, most people have to do it on the floor, you're going to have pressed this. That's going to be the large piece. You want to make sure that you get it really nice and tight. Because when I'm loading on the long arm, I can get it not over tight, but just a nice, firm, flat feel to it. And you would be using either T-pins to put it into carpet or a tape that is safe to put on your hardwood floors or your stone floors or whatever you're doing. So you put your backing down first, then you would put your batting on top and then your top, and then you're either going to pin or base stitch that on. Now, long armors, most long armors will baste for you. Also, if you want to be the one that does the quilting, the friends that I do that for are very impressed at how much easier it is for them to get it under their domestic machines when they go to use it. On the long arm, this is your back. Well, I've already got it done because it would have taken too long to have done the whole thing to show you on this. But this is your backing right here. And I have these snapper clamps that I can clamp to. So I would clamp it to this one down here first on the back side over here. And then I roll it and then I clamp it to the top up here. And then I roll it until I get it nice and snug. So it should look like that when you're ready. Now, when you're basting it, you don't want it as tight as you're going to quilt it. So this is one tighter than I would quilt at. See how I can get a bounce on that? It's a very light bounce. I'm going to get a bigger bounce. So I would baste it at this bounce here. And you can see that I started up here at the top. Well, you can't see probably. You probably can't see the threads on it. I like to put my machine on a base. And then I can lock it into place so that it stays right at the top. So I start off and get a very nice dry top edge, very straight for you. Then I can turn it and I come down and I check my sides and I get my sides straight. Then I can go back and I baste them on the side. And I do the same thing in this area right here. I lock it in again and I baste across here. Now this one here comes out when I'm actually doing the quilting. Take it out before I start quilting on it. But as you roll it, your fabric gets pushed. So I always baste. Some people don't baste, but my preference is to baste the whole quilt before I get started, because sometimes you can get to the bottom and be surprised and you don't have enough either fabric, even if you measured it out. Sometimes we make mistakes. So I like to baste it and know that I'm right on and everything fit before I get started. So I loaded a quilt that actually is going to allow me to show you a couple different things, options that I would have with this. So I've got it all on here, and now I'm going to tighten it up again, take it back up to where it would be. And I'm going to put some clamps on. You want it to be snug up here, and you want it to be snug on the sides too. Again, you want it snug, not tight. You don't want to stretch the quilt. You just want to hold it nice and snug. And I'll do the same for the other side. Did you notice when I put that last one on, you might have seen the quilt kind of go, okay. Now you notice how it's very comfortable now. It's ready for me to start putting my design on. So there's different things that a long armor can do for you. We can do an edge to edge, which is an all over, so it's going to quilt all the way across the quilt. I'm going to come back and show you that one because I'm kind of set up for more for custom right now. But going into custom, I'm going to tell the computer where the quilt is at. So I'm going off the edge of the quilt. Right here. That little clicking noise you hear is marking areas on the for the computer to know. Now I'm also going to put another one across this top edge here where before the checkerboard starts, because if I was doing this custom, I'm actually on this one here, I was planning on dropping in an edge to edge on the area outside of the checkerboard area. So I drew a line right here. And then on the computer, I have to wake it up. It always slips off of this. So what I did is I didn't come back up and catch it, and that's because I'm trying to do a couple extra things here. But I would take this pattern that I already put on here, and I would adjust it so that it's not sitting on that red line. I need to pull it up just slightly higher than that. So it's just off the red line there. And then as I come to each row, this right now, when it's in black, it's telling me that it's ready to quilt. So I'm going to tell that that's already sewn. And I am going to tell this top row here that I want to fill the inside of it so it's not stitching all over the outside of it, because it's not necessarily fitting in the frame area that I have available for it. And the computer will, yeah, cut that corner off. I knew it was going to do that because I didn't get that straight there. But that's how you can do the top part on this. So now I'm going to come back and I am going to drop in, this is the custom part, some little patterns. This one here is a lippity-loop here. And I have a laser light on here. I don't know if you can see it. It tells me where the point is on the fabric. Now I have to come in when I'm doing custom enough for that binding and to keep this straight, because we know this block is a little bit wider than these blocks because it's not finished on its edges. So I'm going to just go along and click on the points. I'm a little more precise than this when I'm actually doing it to stitch out, but you guys don't want to sit around and watch me be precise right this minute. I'm actually pretty much on it, but I'm going to just show you a small section here. And then I'm going to how it would. Every one of those clicks dropped one in right into one of those individual purple blocks there. Now I'm going to add another design. I'm going to do the same thing, except for this time I'm going to be in the white blocks, or the dotted blocks. I'm not sure how much of this you can actually see. That last click you're hearing there, that's stopping it so I don't run the pattern back up in a funny way. Back over here. And that would be the design that I could put in the checkerboard. Now, if I needed to go in and fine tune that, go over here and do a frame around one real quick for you. And this is either I didn't get it in there straight, or in the case that maybe the block is just slightly off. So this is the block I'm going to work on right here. Actually, it looks really good. But if I needed to, I could adjust the block by stretching it. Or I could adjust it, you know, if it's really wonky and it's off, I can pull it around and pull it in to where I need it. Okay. Or if I had to eliminate parts of it, I can go in and I could, like, look at this pink right here. Can you? Yeah, you can. This pink area right here. I can pull these blue nodes and adjust it. And if I needed to divide it, because if there was a line right through here, and I only wanted the top part, I'd have and needed to tear it apart. I could also trim it. There's multiple ways I could do it. So this one eliminated that part. Now it's divide. Now all the machines, the different brands of machines are different. Oops, wrong one. And do that. So different machines do things different ways, but you still get the same result from it. There we go. And if I had a line right across here and that's all I wanted to quilt out, I could just quilt out that one area right there. So now that's how edge to edge works, or not edge to edge, I'm sorry, that's how custom works. But if I were to if I was going to run this as an edge to edge, I would do that boundary. I should have held off on the boundary the first time. Run the boundary around. And I could drop my pattern in. Sorry if I'm in. And I can adjust what size I want the pattern to be if I need to. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. I'm going to tell it how many rows I want, or how many repeats I want. I know I need more than that. I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to add some more rows so I can show you some magic. So I can individually grab each row. And I can flip it the other way if I want to. I do this quite often because I don't like, see how the design is all going one feathered way? Well, I like it to look a little more non-uniform. Okay. And then I would grab that up, pull it up, put it in. So I actually send my customers, I pull up patterns like this and I'll take a picture and send it to my customer so that they can have choices to pick between. I usually send them 3. The actual size of this would be this size. I don't know if you can see on the computer right now, but each one of these little squares right here are 1 inch. So that gives you a good feel for how that is. Now that's actually bigger than I would run this. I would make it smaller in size when I started at the beginning over here. So then I also send my customers pictures of choices of thread colors. And so what I've got a pink, a yellow, and a purple here. And when you're checking your colors, whether you have a long arm or at home, you don't want to use your spool color. Your spool color is a great place to start, but it's amazing when you lay a color on top of your fabric, how it can change. And then they can choose which color they like. And I'm going to try to get this up here so you can have an idea. You're not even going to be able to see a difference, I'm afraid, but we'll see. We'll try it. Oh yeah, purple's great because that's the one I'm going to use, but actually all 3 of these would work wonderfully. And if they had a preference because they wanted the yellow to show up more, I would have the yellow come up. We'll pick you up. I hope I don't make you nauseous here. There we go. I don't know if you can see those or not, but the purple, I like the purple because it doesn't pull and pop, where these turn out a little more wider. The pink and the yellow turn out more wider on the darker purple. And on this one here, it allows the purple to blend in. Some people want the quilting to stand out, and that's great if you have a lot of open space. But for me, I prefer the quilting to be part of the quilt and to allow your work to show more so. One more thing, actually, let me ask you if you have any questions on this. I want to do kind of a little bit of a preview because I have the equipment at home and the big cutting table at home. It makes it easier for my later demo. Is there any questions that anybody has on the long arming part right now?
I don't know how.
Sure, yeah, if you just,
She trimmed the middle section
we have a customer here that wants to know if you trim the middle section
after you put it together.
after you put it together. Like the seam in the
Oh.
middle.
She does a half
Did I
inch.
trim the quilt itself?
No.
Or
No, she's doing the back, when she's putting the backing together, she does like a half inch. She trimmed that down to like a 1/4 inch or less.
no, I leave it at a half inch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes. Is there any other questions?
And you're welcome to unmute if you have questions and ask your question. I just ask that you mute yourself back up when you're done.
Okay. While you guys are thinking, I'm going to go ahead and clear off my cutting table, and I'm going to show you how to do a binding on the bias. How to cut a binding on the bias. So I'm going to do a binding demonstration at 12:45 today. And this is just, again, something because I have it at home. So on your cutting mat, you have a 45-degree line that runs on your cutting table. That is where you're going to place, you're going to put your fabric on. I've already cut this to save time because I know I'm already running over here in just a minute. So you would just put your fabric on and cut it following this line from end to end. And I love my 8.5 by 24.5 inch ruler for multiple reasons, but it just is more stable than when you get into the 4.5 when you're cutting a long strip like this. So after you do that, after you cut your angle into it, you use the edge that you cut and you pull them together and you line them up. And I love the Stripology extra large ruler because I can get my binding cut out. I'm actually going to use this binding, so I want it straight. I don't want it to be a, well, I can straighten it up in just a second. This binding is going to go on that little baby quilt that you saw over there on the long arm. So you put it on your edge, and you're going to have 2 halves. And when I was folding it, I'll show you on the next one how I fold it. So I'm actually going to trim this down because I'm not sure I was perfectly straight there. So I am going to line it up on one of my lines on my fold here on the fabric right here. And I always do 2.5, well, not always, but almost always, the 2.5 inch strip. So I just drop it in and cut my strips off. I'm going to continue this because I am going to use this one and I don't want to have to come back and catch it. So I'm doing 2.5 inches all the way across. I'm at 17.5 right now. No, I don't need to do my 20. It'd turn out really small, and that would be way too small to try to make any piece of binding out. Set those aside and do the next one. Again, I'm using the edge that was cut on the bias to straighten everything up. And I'm putting my points, my long points together. I'm actually going to go a little higher. I'm going to match this point here to about this point up here on it because I have to fold it one more time to get it in there. But I know that before I started using the Stripology ruler and doing this, each time I did this, I was doing 2.5 inches, and I had to move my ruler over 2.5 inches to continue. So I'm going to drop that again. I'm going to line it up on my line right here and finish cutting this up. Is there any questions on this? The rest of this, I'll be doing the demo on sewing these strips together and pressing them and putting them onto a quilt at 12:45. And I think that's all I have for you. If you don't have any questions, I'm going to turn it back to Paula because Paula, I don't have all the information right in front of me right now as to who's coming up next. But thank you.
Debbie?
Yes.
They would like to see your results of cutting your, can you hold up a few pieces of your,
Yes. My strips after I cut them.
yeah.
She's using an ombre.
So this is an ombre fabric. It goes light to dark.
Oh, so she's getting more angled.
Oh, okay.
I cut them on the bias so they have this stretch in them. And I need to save something for my demo later.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, Debbie. Are there any
Thank
other
you.
questions before Debbie signs off?
I just signed up right now because I wanted to see if I could see it. Okay. All right, sign up. It's easy.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Debbie. We're just going to take a quick break and reset up. And next will be Anne, and she's going to demo what you do with your orphan quilt blocks.
Oh, yeah. I wish I had.
Are you going to have those maybe videos on your website or anything?
Bits of.
Just a second.